This text was prepared for educational purposes, based on historical laws and factual events. We do not support or encourage any form of violence or discrimination. In the vast and relentless territory of the American Old West, the battle between the Native Americans and European settlers unfolded like a tragic opera of cultural confrontation, fierce resistance, and a fight for survival that would forever mark the history of the United States. The story begins in the early 19th century when waves of settlers, in search of fertile land and opportunities, began to cross the Mississippi River. These pioneers were eager to expand American territory, a mission sanctified by manifest destiny, the belief that settlers were destined to spread across North America. The natives, who had lived on these lands for thousands of years, now faced an unprecedented threat. Tribes such as the Sioux, Apache, Comanche, and Cheyenne, who knew every inch of the terrain, its seasons, and resources, suddenly found themselves confronted by armies armed with firearms and an abundance of horses. These initial encounters, often peaceful, soon degenerated into violent conflicts as the settlers' demands for land and resources intensified. The arrival of the Transcontinental Railroad in the 1860s intensified the confrontations. The construction of the railroad not only brought more settlers, but also divided the natives' hunting territories, interfering with their traditional routes and affecting their subsistence. The bison, a vital source of food, hide, and material for the natives, were hunted nearly to extinction by settlers and sportsmen, severely impacting the tribes of the Great Plains. Indigenous leaders like Geronimo of the Apache, Sitting Bull, and Crazy Horse of the Sioux became icons of resistance. Each tribe had its own strategy for fighting and surviving. The Sioux, under the leadership of Sitting Bull, achieved one of the most notable victories against the U.S. Army at the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876, where General George Custer and his troops were completely defeated. This battle, although a victory for the natives, marked the beginning of the end of their struggle, as it led to even fiercer retaliation by the United States government. Another significant event was Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce's flight in 1877. They attempted to escape to Canada to avoid being forced onto a reservation. Leading about 800 people, Chief Joseph conducted a strategic retreat of more than 1,200 miles, facing several battles against U.S. troops along the way. The journey, marked by bravery and desperation, ended just 40 miles from the Canadian border, where Chief Joseph uttered his famous words of surrender, "I will fight no more forever." The late 19th century saw the definitive decline of indigenous resistance. The Indian Wars ended with the capture of Geronimo in 1886 and the massacre at Wounded Knee in 1890, where hundreds of Lakota Sioux, including women and children, were killed by the U.S. Army. This event is often cited as the end of the Indian Wars. With the tribes forced onto reservations, the government implemented policies to civilize the natives, including the Dawes Act of 1887, which divided tribal lands into individual plots in an attempt to assimilate the natives into Euro-American culture. Many traditions were banned, and indigenous children were sent to boarding schools, where they were forbidden to speak their native languages or practice their cultures. The struggle of the Indians against the Americans in the Old West was marked by bravery, tragedy, and a series of misunderstandings. Despite the losses and attempts at cultural erasure, Native Americans have kept many of their traditions and identities alive. Today, they continue to fight for the recognition of their rights and the preservation of their cultures. This story, full of curiosities and twists, is not just a tale of conflicts, but a narrative of resistance and resilience that continues to inspire and teach valuable lessons about the importance of cultural diversity and historical justice. We thank you for following this educational content. This text was prepared for informational purposes, and we do not support or encourage any form of violence or discrimination. The Hidden Stories channel team thanks you for your attention and interest.